Sydney's King's Cross has been an entertainment destination for well over a century. For most parts of the 20th century, it had a reputation of having a 24-hour heartbeat. Truth is, it was just about the only place in Australia that was open and awake after 9:30 at night. The heartbeat is still beating in the 21st century, perhaps not as strongly, but it's still beating. King's Cross is a precinct of Potts Point, not a suburb on its own right, and it's certainly not suburban. If anything, it's a state of mind, a people's place, poets and pimps, writers and skiters, singers and mudslingers, drag artists and con artists, and of course the wealthy, the down and out, the homeless and the hopeless. After William Street, named for King William, was opened in 1834, it soon rivalled Oxford Street as the gateway to Sydney's east. The cross, originally Queen's Cross until the death of Queen Victoria, became the main thoroughfare to Potts Point, Elizabeth Bay, Rushcutters Bay and eventually Watson's Bay. The Coca-Cola neon that dominates the top of the cross today was erected in 1974, and it's the largest outdoor billboard in the Southern Hemisphere. But before the sign, King's Cross was already famous for its neon signs, advertising strip joints, cafes, bars, restaurants, and girls, girls, girls. The top of the cross included, and still does, some stunning buildings. Waddington's 2,000-seat King's Cross Picture Theatre, opened in 1916 and given an Art Deco makeover in the 1930s, became a major attraction. However, colloquially, it was known as the King's Cross Flea Pits. The 1911 fire station, the King's Cross Hotel, and its neighbour at the time, the Canberra Oriental Hotel, and in the 50s, the Time for a Capstan clock on the Minton building were all landmarks familiar to Sydney-siders and visitors. Traffic at the top of the cross was generally chaotic. The trams found the steep gradient of William Street a struggle, and congestion ruled as cars, bikes and the few remaining horse-drawn carts struggled to compete. Darlinghurst Road, commonly called the Strip, was originally mainly residential. The dominant residence was the Alberto Terrace, which spanned 18 terraces to Bayswater Road. Built in 1865, it astonished visitors who could make out its skyline as far away as Hyde Park. It was sold in the 1920s. Today the Strip is all retail, a couple of backpacker joints and a few nightclubs and fast food outlets. For a while, particularly in the 1930s and 40s, Darlinghurst Road and parts of Potts Point were very chic. Fine dining, specialty food shops and prestige clothing stores. It was the place to be seen. The opening of the Minerva buildings, including the theatre, in 1939 also breathed energy into the area. Theatre has a way of doing that. During World War II, the cross catered to Allied servicemen on R&R, rest and recuperation. I'm not sure if there was much rest. The cross also became noted for its high concentration of European refugees, especially Jewish, Hungarian, Romanian, Polish and Italian. The 1957 comic novel, They're a Weird Mob, was set in the Cross of the 50s and added considerably to its mystique. Many of the migrants established coffee shops, restaurants and bars. They brought a coffee culture and a new life and a European sensibility to the area. The Cross emerged as a destination for the dispossessed, especially gays and lesbians, who felt comfortable with its bohemian style. Beatniks, bodgies and widgies, street buskers and of course hooters, hoofers and hookers all congregated in King's Cross. They Girls and its lead performer, Carlotta, became famous, but just as famous were the underground parties, sly grog shops and gambling joints. Many locals still fondly recall the mix of heady sleaze and normality. The mantra was very much mind your own business. We could probably do with a bit more of that nowadays. The Vietnam War years brought a lot of pain to the area. Sleaze accelerated, hard drugs, violence and police corruption became commonplace. There were some memorable venues and some very, very, very late nights. By the end of the Vietnam War, the area appeared exhausted and went into a slump. Many of the larger restaurants and spaces became music venues, especially in the 80s and 90s. The place rocked on with live music and later, because of music fashion, DJ venues. The puff went out in the 2000s after a deadly ting hit of a young man in 2012 and another young man in 2014. And the state government, with a knee-jerk reaction, introduced lockout laws to prevent alcohol-fueled violence. The nighttime streets of King's Cross became deserted. Recovery of the nighttime economy has been slow, but it's certainly been improving. King's Cross still exists. Yes, it is more gentrified, and as it continues to evolve, it just needs to keep a sly eye on its own history, lest it become suburbia. God forbid.